Hello lovelies, my name is Eric Addish. Welcome to my channel, and welcome to All Wizard Wonders, a series on my channel where I talk about things that don't necessarily have an end. I start stories and maybe we'll never finish them. So in this video I want to talk about harm. In witchy spaces we often hear this "and at home none, do as ye will." And this sort of brings up questions like about veganism, vegetarianism, harming animals, and these sorts of things. But I wanted to take the conversation in a different direction. Lately I've been consuming a lot of atheist media, and one of the things that I've been coming across that really struck me as interesting is their argument for, well, I'm not hurting anybody. And what a few of these creators have said is that by perpetuating these ideas in the supernatural, this belief in the supernatural, you're encouraging people to seek out the supernatural in place of secular means of dealing with things. So if I bring that more specifically, it's like a kid is sick and their parent decides to heal them with herbs and crystals instead of using modern medicine. And when I heard that, and they were like essentially saying that by creating this content, by putting my ideas out there and my beliefs out there, I'm perpetuating this idea that is inherently harmful because of the things that people will do with that information. And it really got me thinking about this and wondering if what I'm doing here is actually correct, if what I'm doing here is actually helpful, or if I am causing harm by creating this content, creating the products and services that I make, all these sorts of things. And it really got me thinking about where we stand on that topic as like a community. Because I think a lot of pagans can definitely agree, like we have a firm foundation of like not forcing your will on others, and I think we have ideas about black magic where you're doing things against people's wills. But it got me thinking, like, is this even useful? Is this even helpful? Now, of course, I'm coming from a psychological model at the moment, so I'm not explicitly saying to people, like, I believe in the supernatural. But if they take my content, because a lot of what I do when I'm talking about these things, I tend to withhold my own personal beliefs and give people the options. I talk about the psychological model, the spirit model, the energy model, and I encourage people to sort of think about where they fall in the spectrum rather than telling them what to believe. I tell them the different beliefs that people have, and I love Tommy Kelly whenever he's like, other opinions are available, and I think that that's really, really useful, really helpful to be able to say, this is what I think, but, it's not the only ideas about these things. And even though I can come on here and be like, I'm in the psychological model, I think this is a purely internal experience, I think that you, can get a lot from placebo and working with the subconscious or whatever. But it's like I saw on a witch group recently a woman asking about anybody who had experienced home birthing with the aid of our ways or something, like, I don't understand why witches feel the need to speak in such cryptic, archaic language. It's so strange. I find myself doing it as well because, like, that's the text aesthetic that we use. It's the dictation, I guess, that we use is very ye olde sort of thing. But yeah, she was asking if anybody home birthed with witchcraft, and I just like saw it and I just thought, honey, go to the hospital, get yourself an epidural. Like, don't put yourself or your child at unnecessary risk because you want to do it with magic. Like, it's just, like, if you want to have crystals in the hospital room, that's awesome. I encourage that. When my youngest nephew was born, I placed a hourglass in the room, and I used that to sort of catch the time of his birth so that I could use that new life kind of energy in future workings. And so, like, I think, like, incorporating witchcraft into things is fine, but I don't think you should ever be substituting medicine for witchcraft, and I think, like, that is really dangerous, that is really harmful, and I certainly don't want my work to be perpetuating those kind of ideas. And, like, it's like another thing that I come across in witchcraft spaces, it's this idea of intention. And it's like, oh, as long as the intent is there, it's fine. As long as you have a clear intention. It's like, fuck off. Like, honestly, the only reason your intention needs to be clear is because if you're telling a spirit the thing you want, you know, if they don't know what you want, how are they going to bring it to you? That's the only reason I can see intention being relevant, to be honest. Like, if you think that spirits are individual, you know, beings of their own will and desire, like, if you tell them, I want money, like, whether you find 20 cents on the street or you win a lottery, like, they still brought you money. So you need to have your intentions clear, sure. But I think, like, there's so much ideas, like, about how, like, intention is all you need. And for me, I don't think so. I think magic is a technology, and if you do X, Y, Z, A, B, C will happen. Regardless of whether you believe in it or whether your intention is there, like, I really think of it as a technology. If you do the thing's gonna happen. But it's just, yeah, it's really interesting. It's a really interesting topic, and something that I've been sort of battling with recently is, you know, whether or not these ideas I'm perpetuating are harmful or not, because obviously I can't make the disclaimer with every single person that I meet or that I interact with that I think this is a purely psychological experience. I can't make that disclaimer happen in every space, and so there are going to be people who think that I am encouraging supernatural ideas, and I guess in a sense that I am, you know, I'm encouraging people to decide if they fall into that sort of spiritual, energetic, or psychological model. I want them to think for themselves and use their own personal experience to decide what's going on. But you know, at no point do I want to put people at risk unnecessarily. Do I want people to think that they don't need to vaccinate their children because they're using essential oils? Like, it's very concerning to me, and especially when there's so much overlap in witchcraft with things like essential oils and homeopathy and naturopathy and all these sorts of things, and like... You know, I saw James Randi do a video where he, like, downed this whole thing of homeopathic sleeping pills. He ate the whole bottle and then was, like, talking about how they dupe people by putting, like, poison risks on them and things like this when they're completely harmful. It's really hard to say. Like, there's so much, like, dubiousness in these kind of spaces and so much fuckery going on that you just... It does make you wonder if being in these spaces is helpful or harmful, or whether these, like, people who are pushing these atheist, secular, humanist ideas are, like, have it right. You know, I definitely consider I'm a secular humanist first. I don't think that everybody should be following my religion, and I don't think that everybody should be practicing my path. You know, like, I know it's not for everybody, but it is for me, and, you know, like, me practicing in the privacy of my own home isn't hurting anybody, but potentially myself. And I don't think that anybody should encroach on my will, and if my will is to practice magic, be that harmful to me. Because I've often said, you know, if I found out tomorrow that the scientists had proved that this was undeniably, empirically, all in your head, I would still practice magic as I always have. And the reason for that is because even if it is psychological, it's been immensely helpful to me. And I think if we could prove that it's psychological, maybe we can take another look at these techniques and wonder, so how are these people using these techniques to control the placebo effect? Like, if that's what's happening, isn't that fascinating that we have these ancient techniques that work the placebo? Like, I think that in and of itself is useful, is worth something. And if that's all it is, that's fine. I'm still gonna do my thing. But it's hard to say, isn't it? It's very hard to say. So, like I say, I don't really have an answer to this question. I don't really have an outcome from these thoughts. But it is something that I think is worthwhile. I think even Kellyanne Maddox said recently, like, I'm not hurting anybody, so why should you care? And it's like, well, maybe you are. Maybe we are hurting people. I don't know. I really don't. I really don't. But if you have any thoughts on this topic, please leave them in the comments below. I would really love to have your thoughts and have a different perspective on this, because, yeah, I've sort of consumed as much as I can on the topic, and now I'm really not sure where to go from here. You know, I've had a bit of an existential crisis from this, wondering if I should pull my content and stop making wands and doing the stuff that I'm doing. So it's been a really tough thing to contemplate and think about. But like I say, at the end of the day, you know, like, I guess I can't really be held responsible for what people do with the content I put out. You know, I can say that I come from a psychological model and that I'm a secular humanist, but unless people listen to that bit, I don't know if it means anything. So yeah, that's a bit of a downer. I hope that this hasn't been too difficult to listen to or to watch, and I hope that I haven't upset anybody by putting this out there, but it is something that I've been thinking about, and something that I think is worth talking about in these spaces. So if you do have any thoughts or want to leave a video response or anything like that, I would definitely love to hear more about what people have to say on the topic of ideas being harmful in witchy spaces. But until next time, I hope that you're well. Mwah.